Welcome to Barnyard Language. We are Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families.
In case your kids haven't already learned all the swears from being in the barn, it might be a good idea to put on some headphones or turn down the volume. While many of our guests are professionals, they aren't your professionals. If you need personalized advice, consult your people.
All right.
Welcome back to season 2 of Barnyard Language. Now, I guess technically we've already had one episode, but this is our first update for season 2. And Katie and I haven't talked on Zoom for a month, so we don't know how long this update is going to take because, well, we still message each other. We actually haven't, been semi face-to-face online. You know what I mean. So, Katie, as usual, I'm going to start with you. What has been going on the last month? We took August off.
It feels very on brand that we're starting season 2 with the second episode of season 2 instead of the first one. For our listeners, we had quite a discussion about whether the most recent episode was the last episode of season 1 or the first episode of season 2. So it is the first episode of season 2, or maybe it's both. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why this is bothering me so much.
It doesn't matter.
I was thinking about the update this morning and I was like, I'm sure I have lots of exciting stuff to talk about. And I was like, not really. Kids went back to school.
When did school start where you live?
They started, I want to say the girl child started August 25th. And then the boy child started the week after because he's in 4-year-old preschool and she's in kindergarten.
And she's been looking forward to kindergarten for months. Is it all she imagined it would be?
I think she anticipated that perhaps all of her classmates would have really changed and matured through the summer. Apparently somebody called her a mean word yesterday. And when I asked who it was, she said they were wearing shorts. Okay, well,
so that narrows it down.
Guess it wasn't that big a deal. I don't know. This is the first year that she's been in a different room than all her friends. They have 4 classrooms of kids because there's, 60 kids in the grade. So she and her friends are all in different rooms, which is good for them, but they're off doing God knows what without her, in the kindergarten room next door. And she still sees them at lunch and at recess and outlet.
Sure.
But it's very, very dramatic.
Yeah. And so is the boy child's preschool, pre-K?
Yeah.
What do you call it? Yeah. Is that in a different building than he was in last year? Is that a new?
It is. So the way it works is that everything is sort of clustered together. The elementary school and the junior and senior high school it's 2 buildings, but they're right next to each other. Okay. And then the daycare and 3-year-old preschool that they've been in is just up the block from that. One classroom of 4-year-old preschool, which is run by the school district and not by the daycare. Daycare runs 3-year-old preschool. The school district runs 4-year-old preschool. But there's the community center, which has the YMCA and like the big gym and everything, is where both of our kids, their preschool classroom has been in that building, which is really nice because when the weather's crap, they can just go to the gym and run around and burn it off. And it's nice because they can just walk from daycare to preschool they go over to big school for meals. And now the girl child is at big school all day and the boy child goes back to little school. And then they go over to daycare.
So they will continue to go to roughly the same geographic location.
Yeah.
But it's slightly different setup depending on how old they are.
Yep. And it's really nice that everything is in one place because you see a lot of, town kids walking who, drop a couple siblings off at daycare and at Head Start, and then they drop some off at 4-year-old preschool, and then they drop some off at elementary, and then they go on to the high school. So there's a lot of big families in town. Yeah. So there's a lot of dropping people off at different buildings. So it's nice that they're all right next to each other like that.
There's got to be some farm updates, though. It was summer.
Yeah,
Things were happening. Yeah.
that's about it,
Crops happened.
Arlene.
Hay
It was
happened.
summer, things have happened.
Things have happened.
We're finishing up third crop hay. It's been rough, I think, a little bit. We're getting to the part of the year that is very, very humid in Iowa. And so getting the hay dry enough to bale has been challenging.
Mhm.
But it is what it is. It's a nice looking crop. It's just getting it baled and in the barn that's been a bit more of an issue. Whatever. Other than that, just starting to get things wrangled around for putting the rams back in with the ewes and the bull back in with the cows and getting everybody put back together so they can be happy, which will be nice. There'll be a lot less noise when everyone is back where they belong.
Yeah.
We have, cows that are starting to come into heat again after, having calved this spring or whatever. It's getting noisy out there. And the bull is starting to get real grumpy about the fact that they keep walking away and leaving him in the barn. So it'll be nice to let him back out. We really haven't done anything for last month, Arlene. We're very boring people.
That's okay.
Which is good. It's good not to have anything too exciting to talk about. How have things been at your place?
It's been good. August tends to be one of our busier months. What used to be our county Holstein show and is now kind of a regional Holstein show because a lot of counties are, as tends to happen in lots of places, there are getting to be fewer farms and fewer people who show cows as well. So that is in August. So there was a lot of prep work for that. And then my daughter and husband and various 4-Hers went to a couple of other fairs who had open heifer shows, so not milking cow classes, so that makes it a little easier because you're not having to milk them on site or anything. But yeah, brought some heifers to a couple of smaller fairs. Our county 4-H show happened in August, so there's a lot of showing going on. Washing whites, it felt like every other every week, and lots of steam training and trying to get them ready again to be worn. And another tradition which happened in August this year too is I go every year to a family camp. I've been going since my daughter was 1. I think was the first time I went as an adult, and it's a camp that I went to when I was growing up with my mom, and then went on my own as a kid too. So it's like a traditional summer camp where kids go and spend a week and can do lots of fun stuff, but then they have a family camp session every summer where parents can go with younger kids who aren't ready to go to camp on their own yet. So you still get to stay in a cabin, and there's staff there to run the activities, and there's a cook there to prepare the meals, but you get to go to summer camp as a grown-up, so with your children, of course. So it's kind of a good chance to be a fun mom because I'm not worrying about laundry or cooking or planning activities, and I with the change of routine. So he didn't maybe have as much fun as I had hoped, but I think it was still a good experience overall. But it had its challenges. I went with just the younger 2 and nephews along with us because the older ones have kind of aged out of going to camp with their mom, but it was still good. And some of my cousins are on staff there now, and I had some aunts and cousins who were campers as well, so that was pretty cool too. Another farm-based change that we've had is my father-in-law previously had sheep, and he'd been downsizing his flock a bit in the last. Anyway, he had some knee replacements done, and so he downsized at that point a few years ago, and he'd made the decision back in May or June that he was going to sell the remaining sheep. So the day the sheep moved out, the show heifers moved over across the road to the former sheep barn, which is great because now they have water bowls and there's separate pens, so everyone can get fed separately. There's special diets for depending what they need to look like for show season. But we're also learning that the sheep fence is not necessarily standing up to what Holstein heifers and yearlings require of it. So we've had a few escapees, so that's required a little bit of a fine tuning in terms of getting the fences up to par for what we're requiring it to do.
Well, and I know one thing we've learned with running sheep and cattle is cattle have much longer legs than sheep
Yes,
do
yep,
and can jump
that's true.
much higher than the average sheep.
Yeah. And when they stretch over the fence to get grass on the
Yeah.
other side, then yeah, things can get squished down too.
Yeah, I suppose sheep tend to go through the fence where cattle tend to go over to reach
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
So
other than
I always said when we used to have goats, and I said I was just going to put like a 12-foot, chain link fence down the middle with like barbed wire and a machine gun tower, just like down the middle of the farm, and then
yeah,
not
you
even bother
basically
perimeter
need
fencing.
yeah, you need like the Jurassic Park fencing
Yeah,
if you're gonna have goats,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But I figured if you just put it down the middle and told them not to go anywhere near it, they'd spend all their time going back and forth across it, and they'd probably
Yeah.
never notice that the rest of it was not fenced.
There, yeah.
You know.
Good theory.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a Black Angus cow a couple of years ago that was a beautiful cow who went to the sale barn because she kept destroying pipe gates, like
Hmm.
just shredding them. It's like, those gates are expensive. That's not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
in other summer news, oh, it doesn't feel like a whole lot sometimes. We have fabulous neighbors who let us use their pool, so we spent some time over there on the hot days. My parents actually bought a cottage not too far away, under an hour, so we spent a couple days there enjoying their new lake view. And last week on the way home from the cottage, I hit a deer. So the first day of school, when my first day of silence in a long time, when there was nobody in the house, I spent most of that first day calling the insurance company and going to the body shop and trying to figure out all the steps that you have to go through to get your vehicle fixed up after you run into something. So that wasn't ideal, but nobody was hurt. Well, other than the deer, obviously. But the humans were not hurt and the van will get fixed. So that's fine.
yeah.
And the kids started back to school. So we have the oldest is going into her final year of high school, which is hard to believe. And number two is starting his first year of high school. So that's been a new experience and he seems pretty excited about it so far. Our high school starts about an hour and a bit earlier than the elementary school. So they're actually out the door to go to the bus, sometimes even before the next two even wake up in the morning. Thankfully, my two early risers are the ones who are in high school, so they're at the door at about 7:30 in the morning to get on the bus and go to high school. And then my elementary guy, grade 7 and grade 3, so they're growing up.
My two were so desperate to take the bus, but I
Mm-hmm.
just with the little one, next year I'll be ready. And I'm probably going to say this until they're both in college, that next year I'll be ready for them to take the bus. The kids really want to take the bus, but we know the bus driver, we know all the other kids on the route, but it's still just by virtue of living in the country, it's still, 45 minutes morning and afternoon. And I
Mm-hmm.
just can't quite, especially since Jim is now driving with it a mile and a half of school every day.
Yeah.
I just can't quite pull the trigger on letting him ride the bus. But
Yeah. We are lucky in the sense that we're in the country, but we're only a few minutes from town. So, like, the high school bus route, I think is, I think my son clocked it at, yeah, they're the last ones on, and we're just a few kilometers from town. So they actually have a pretty short route. So that's nice.
how many minutes did you say it was?
4.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're only like 6 or 7 miles from town, but because there's so few farms out here, farmsteads, and there's
Hmm.
so few kids, they cover a lot of territory picking
Sure.
up
Yeah.
enough kids to make it worth driving the bus.
Yeah. It just depends where on the route you happen to be. Yeah.
Oh, I did sign the girl child up for Clover Kids for 4-H, which starts in 2 weeks. I think she'll really enjoy that. It's
That's fun.
the the baby 4-H,
Hmm. I
where
don't
they
think
go and
we have Clover buds here, but I've never heard of Clover Kids, so that
oh,
must
it's
be a thing.
probably the same thing. They go for like 2 hours a week and do a craft and have a snack or whatever. I don't know.
Hmm.
Brainwash them young. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, she's she's getting really into animals, and it's astounding the amount of science they're learning from watching TV.
Hmm.
Like I think I posted something to the show Instagram the other day, but my kids have a better understanding of a lot of science than I do. And I went to college for a science program.
Yeah.
And my kids still have a better understanding of it, but I'm sure what they're learning is taught in a much more engaging way. So
Yeah.
note to college professors, maybe watch some PBS and get some tips on
Yeah.
that.
Check out Storybots or
Yes.
the other.
Oh,
Yeah.
but number blocks. We're all about the number blocks.
Yes, number blocks is a good one too.
Yep.
So how about we move on to our first guest of season 2? And this I don't think is secret knowledge since she posted it on her own Instagram. But when we recorded, this was back in July, she hadn't announced yet, but she's actually now expecting her second child. So congratulations to our guest that you're going to hear in just a minute.
Wow. Congratulations, guys. That's exciting.
So today we're talking to Jess Martin, a dairy farmer from Southern Ontario. So she's from my province. Jess, we start each of our interviews with the same question. This is a way to introduce yourself to our listeners. And we ask, what are you growing? So this can cover crops, livestock, family, businesses, and all manner of other things. So Jess, what are you growing?
I am growing a variety of things. I'm happy to be on the podcast today. So I do farm with my husband, Ian, and our son, Brody. So obviously I am helping grow him. And we milk 110 cows, and we also grow all our own crops to feed the cows. And then alongside that, we grow all our own forages and also some other crops that we cash crop as well.
And what breed of cattle are you milking?
Holsteins. Yeah.
Is there, as a non-dairy farmer, is there a reason that everybody just has one kind generally?
I'm not sure how to answer that, but it's definitely our preference. They milk more than what jerseys would, and yeah, we just love the breed.
I would say there are some people that have mixed herds in terms of, say, if you were a purebred herd and you were registering cattle, if you had, say, if you, like, I know there are some people who have Holsteins and Jerseys, then you're kind of got those dual streams in terms of registration and things like that. And then there are some things like stall size that are going to be better for, say, your bigger cows. So like if you had Holsteins and Jerseys in a barn, then the Jerseys are going to get messier in your stalls, because if they're bigger for your Holsteins, then they're going to be almost too big for a Jersey. So I mean, there are definitely lots of mixed herds out there, but logistical reasons.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And what kind of setup do you have, Jess, in terms of your barn? That's one of the other usual dairy questions.
Have a parlor, so that would definitely affect if we would add in some jerseys as well. We have a hairbrain swing parlor, so we can milk, it's 24, so we can milk 12 on one side at one time. And then we also have a compost bedded pack where the cows lie on. So we have no stalls, they just lie on the compost pack.
All right. And did you grow up on a farm yourself, or what is your background?
I did not. So this is a huge change for me, but it's been a fun learning curve. I had no experience whatsoever with dairy or farming. My grandparents, I had spent some time there on the farm, but other than that, basically it was new to me when I met Ian. I did do some milking when we had started dating, but it was all new to me after we got married. And then I just got thrown into it, milked twice, sometimes 3 times a day. And now I love it. I wouldn't know anything else. And yeah, I am so happy to be a part of it.
So one of our goals in starting the podcast was to connect with other families who are farming and raising kids on the farm. So what is your favorite thing about raising your little one on the farm? And what's your favorite thing about the stage that he's at right now?
That is a great question. There is so many joys in raising kids on a farm. Considering I didn't come from it, I am grateful to be able to raise a kid on the farm. Just seeing all the new life, I think, is a huge blessing. And also, I love the stage that he's at because he's learning so many new things every day. Sure, it's a very busy stage, but it is also a good stage. He loves the cows. He loves going up to them, interacting with them. And as he grows older, I know we will be able to teach them so many things. I feel like animals can teach us so many things. And just having that connection with an animal and teaching them the hard work and dedication that goes into raising them will go a long way in his life. Whether he chooses to stay on the farm or not, we don't know, but we know we can raise him with such good values and hard work ethic. Yeah.
And how
And
old is he right now? I'm not sure if we got that at the beginning.
He's just a little over 1. He turned 1 in
Okay.
March.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
he's just a
that
little
is the busy
tater.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's walking, so he's very busy in the barn. We know it's a danger, but we try and watch him as good as we can.
For sure. And is this a multi-generational farm? Is this a farm that's been in your husband's family for years or decades or any of that kind of stuff? Or what's the history of the place where you're living?
Yes, it is. So Ian and I are fourth generation dairy farmers. We farm with Ian's parents, and so Brody will be, if he chooses to, will be fifth generation. So definitely a multi-generation farm. Ian's parents are still very involved, which we are grateful for. We're just working on taking over. They still help. And his grandma actually we live on farm, and his grandma actually lives still in the other part of our house. So we are definitely a multi-generation farm.
I think as someone who also didn't come from a farm background, that was one of the biggest adjustments for me was, we also farm with my in-laws. They live across the road.
Okay.
And not so much actually the experience of having them so close, but other people's understanding of what it would be like to have your in-laws across the road. It really does reflect real quickly on how good your relationship is with them and how your partner's relationship is with their parents when you're spending that much time together and it's not, Christmas and, Easter or whatever, but it's an ongoing situation.
Absolutely. It brings many challenges, but it's also very rewarding. I know them better than I would know them if I would just see them Christmas and a few other times a year. I definitely know them a lot better.
I think it's so good for our kids too to see their grandparents and, older generations in general being active people and not just, grandma and grandpa sitting on the couch waiting for the kids to come over so they can feed them candy. It's, it's nice to learn from them and to, to be more
Absolutely.
active together. So what has been the biggest challenge so far to having a little one on the farm? Besides the fact that he can walk now, which is definitely a game changer.
Yeah, so definitely we are grateful for grandparents to help watch him in that aspect when they are around. And if not, I mean, strollers are great. But besides that, the biggest challenge would just be how to manage your time. Like farming is always busy, there is always things to do, but just basically managing your time to be able to do it all. I don't know if that's even possible, but we can at least try. And also bringing him alongside farming, but not overworking him or making him do too much. I mean, obviously he's not working, but pushing him enough to know that we still need to get the work done, but not doing too much is constantly a balance.
Yeah, it's always hard to know, when to stop, right? Because like you said, the list is never done. You're never fully, there's always something you could be doing, and if you're already together as a family, then it's like, oh, well, it's family time. But yeah, sometimes that can turn into just working all the time and never really having those breaks that you need.
That's right. And I know
Lots of
as
things
we
to work
keep,
out.
like, if God allows us to have more children or we have more of a family and our family keeps growing, it'll keep changing. So the challenges always come, but we're just trying to adapt as we go.
So I did check with Jess before the interview to see if Mennonite questions were on the table, and she said that she's good to answer some questions on this topic. So I said, we'll try not to go totally off into this territory. And I feel like this is the most basic question that you probably get all the time, and I could Google it, but I'm asking you instead. So what's the difference between being Mennonite and being Amish?
So that's actually a tough question. I was not sure how to answer that. We do not have a lot of Amish right in this area. And it's really hard to explain because Mennonite is such a vague term, and so is Amish. Like there's a lot of differences within the Amish and a lot of differences within the Mennonite. But basically, kind of an overall answer is that I'm just going to need a minute here. So basically, everybody interprets the Bible differently. So whether you're Catholic, whether you're Presbyterian, whichever religion you are, everyone interprets the Bible differently. And as for Amish and Mennonite, basically, I would say they are more enclosed within themselves. They believe in shunning, which would be the most common one that people know about. And also, I would say that they don't necessarily have as much of a biblical view as what Mennonites would. So we interpret the Bible a lot different than what they would. I'm not even exactly sure if they use the same Bible as what we would. I would need to look into that a little bit more. But basically, it's different interpretations of the Bible, and they want to interpret it in a very simple way.
Sure. So, like you said, even within being Mennonite, that looks different for different people. So, for someone from the outside looking at different Mennonites who, some are using horses and buggy, and some are using a lot more technology, both like in the home and on the farm, what are some of the differences within the Mennonite faith that makes that possible, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so another great question. And that's again with how we interpret the Bible. So Mennonites, which would be, well, that depends where you live, but in our area, like Olodor and Dave Martin, they would drive horse and buggy because they would want to be set apart from the world in that way. So Jesus calls us to be set apart from the world, and that's how they interpret that portion of the Bible. They take it in a very literal sense, whereas me personally, as a Christian, I interpret it more in a spiritual sense, to be set apart from the world. So yes, we still dress modestly, we still wear headship veiling, but we do not take it in the literal sense to be like set apart from the world. We go out on missions, we want to spread the gospel around to the world, whereas they're more secluded within their communities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Or do you have other questions on that?
Yeah, so I guess one of the other questions I had was in terms of, so in some areas, people are homeschooling or have their own Mennonite schools. Where you live, would kids be going to separate in a separate school system, or are they in the public school system, or how does that part of parenting work?
So our church does have our own school, but a couple other churches are joined in with that school that come to that school. But definitely, just with the way the public school system is, we prefer to send our kids to a Christian school because they also teach about the Bible, and that's a great asset. And just also the community asset of it is huge. And we really, really appreciate that. Our school would be funded by the churches, a variety of churches that would be in our denomination of Mennonite. And also, you do need to pay tuition to go there. So not everyone in our church goes to our school. There is some that are in the public school system. It is your choice personally as parents as to where you want to send your kids to school.
Sure, that makes sense.
So were you and your husband both from the same community? I'm trying to ask, like, were you the same level of Mennonite when you got married?
Yes, we were.
I'm trying to come up with a polite way to be like,
No, that's totally fine. Yes. So we were school friends, or our parents were friends. So we were friends from little up, and we did attend the same school. And we attended different churches, but they would be from the same like Mennonite denomination. So, and now we attend the church that he went to. But that was just because it was closer. It's not really any different.
Yeah, there's a lot of Amish in our area in the central US, and my dad's side of the family lives in northwestern Pennsylvania, where there's also a lot of Amish, and seeing the difference between the two areas is a little bit shocking, to be honest. The Amish here wear colors and drink Mountain Dew, and most of them have cell phones, which is a little more power to them. And I understand why people have different interpretations, but it is interesting how widespread that difference can be.
And some of it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not really like, it's mostly just church rules. It's not biblical. Whereas like our church has guidelines, but it is still biblical based. And that's a huge difference. Yeah. Some things we don't even understand about other Mennonites as well. So it's really difficult for us to explain because there are hundreds of different types of Mennonites, especially in this area. So it's difficult to explain, but yeah.
So some of those rules in terms of how people decide to separate from the world, or for lack of a better term, then that can be very, very specific to that church and that particular community. So those rules don't actually translate maybe to other groups.
That's right. That's right. It can be very specifically to one church. Definitely. Yes.
So you recently started a series on your Instagram page called Let's Talk Tuesday. What topics are you talking about and who are you hoping to connect with?
I have had a very wide variety of topics so far. I had started with time management and I have done some farming related topics. I do have one that's coming up that is about anxiety and do we deal with anxiety with the farming debt load? I'm working on that currently because I have got it asked frequently and somebody just asked me it again, which is a very interesting question. Personally, Ian and I do not deal with it. Now we know a lot of people that do. We use it as motivation, but I'm looking forward to talking about that a bit more. But a target audience would be kind of a wide variety of people. That depends what topic, but hopefully a farming community so that they can maybe learn from us, if I want to put it that way, and then possibly other consumers, people that are not on a farm, to understand what we deal with, whether it is anxiety or just some basic on-farm things or on-farm topics that we want to spread the word about.
Do you have any time management tips for us from your Let's Talk Tuesday time management?
Sure.
I can use them all.
Sorry.
Same. I've kind of given up, but okay.
Well, I agree. It's hard. And it's especially difficult when you have a child because you can have a plan and that plan can all get thrown out the window in 1 second. So that's why I was saying the challenge with having a kid is time management, right? So I feel like time management is wide. Like it's not just on farming. I feel like we can all work on it, whether I'm speaking about it or not. But time management tips, basically not waste too much time on your phone by like procrastinating things, which I feel is a big challenge in this day and age. And some other things would be, I'm going to need a minute to think about this one too.
That's all right. I didn't put it in the script.
That's okay.
I'm trying to think I had another question and now it's gone. So there, that's one way to manage your time.
Yeah. Another time management tip would be to organize your life. And I feel like that's a wide variety, but organizing, decluttering your space, keeping your life, like using either your phone day planner, some sort of day planner to try and stay organized and on top of things with times, and try and like plan your days according. So today I had an appointment this morning, podcast in the afternoon. So I knew that this day was a day that was going to be dedicated for that. So I got a babysitter for Brody so I could do some other things and stay focused on that. Whereas if I would have had an appointment and done a podcast another day, it would have taken up 2 whole days, pretty much. So trying to manage your time in a way like that when you have children, I feel can be very helpful. And there are many other ways for time management, but I would feel that not procrastinating and just organizing your life can be in so many different ways.
So we ask all of our guests, if you were going to dominate a category at county fair, what would it be? And categories can be real or made up to ensure that you win.
I feel like something like a Plinko or something that just has good luck. I have I have a seemingly good luck when it comes to like names that are or games that are have a draw or something like that where it's simply just luck of a draw. I seem to randomly have good luck with those. So some sort of fair game that just has good luck is something that I would maybe dominate in.
That's a good option. It's good to know when that your luck's going to hold out.
It's not always, but tends to have better luck.
That's right. Is there anything else you want to chat about before we move into our cussing and discussing segment, Jess?
No, I do not think so. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you can stick around for this one because you can discuss, you don't have to cuss. You can discuss whatever you want. So I will introduce the cussing and discussing segment. We've registered for an online platform called SpeakPipe where you can leave your cussing and discussing entries for us and we will play them on the show. So go to speakpipe.com/barnyard language and leave us a voice memo, or you can always send us an email at barnyardlanguage@gmail.com and we'll read it out for you. So Katie, what are you cussing or discussing this week?
The gross spills that you find when you have little kids. I'm hoping they'll grow out of it eventually.
Did you just find one?
Not yet today, knock on wood, but I just I feel like I can just feel them creeping up on me. Like you let your kid have an applesauce pouch and before you know it, you'll pick something up and there's applesauce on the bottom of it. It just I swear I could probably lock my kids in a padded room with nothing and they would still find a way to make some
kind of
sticky
mess.
spilled mess. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, or it's finding the container days later and thinking, when did someone eat this product and how long ago did it make its way into the house?
I think the best part of being out of the bottle and sippy cup phase is not finding things under the couch that are
yeah.
I'm generally pretty frugal about stuff like that, but even I had at least one bottle per child that got tossed because it was just nope, not gonna do it. Just nope.
Before having kids, I didn't know that I wanted couches that went all the way to the floor, but I think that I probably do want couches that go all the way to the floor because then all the stuff wouldn't roll under there. And now it's the pets throwing stuff under there.
I know it would be uncomfortable, but I kind of feel like if you could make your whole house out of cinder blocks and then just have a pressure washer that came down from the ceiling, that, furniture and everything out of cinder blocks, obviously not very hygge or very cozy, but it would be easier to.
It would be cleaner. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Jess, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
I definitely agree with finding gross things in the house. I always find Brody loves macaronis, so I always find dried up gross macaronis everywhere because they stick to his bum and then I try and wipe them off, but I find them dragged all over the house. So definitely relatable. Definitely.
I had no idea how much time I'd spend picking things up off the floor and going, what was this, before it became what it is now. Is it a blueberry? Is it poop? Who knows? Gross. Arlene, what do you have?
I'm going off in a different direction, and I'm going to discuss or cuss or talk to you guys about the difficulty in making friends as an adult, because I have some good friends nearby, and yet I find that I hardly ever see them. And starting new relationships when you're at home or on the farm a lot of the time is I find really challenging. And I mean, I love being a podcaster because we get to meet cool people, but most of them don't live anywhere near me. So it's not like I can just make new friends. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about this week, is how hard it is to make friends as a grown-up. Because my kids have all these play dates and I don't have very many play dates, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, I feel like it's somewhat easier to build good relationships with folks who are further away, sometimes more so than it is with folks who are local, because there is no expectation that you're going to find a way to hang out. So I feel like it's easier to communicate because you're just in my phone. I don't have to make plans and get a babysitter and drive somewhere. And
and then you don't feel guilty if you haven't seen them in 6 months because you're not going to see them in 6 months.
Yeah. It's and if you miss them, you can just start a podcast and then you can see them every day.
Yeah.
I probably see you more than I see my husband, Arlene.
Yeah, on Zoom for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with finding it hard to find friendships, and I find keeping them. As your friends or as your kids grow up, your friends change with school friends and church friends and this and that. And I find your friends are just constantly changing. There's always some that stay put, but finding them and keeping them is definitely difficult because people change too. People change. Yeah.
And then if you have kids at different ages, you know, if it's a situation where you're hanging out together and the kids don't get along, or they're at completely different stages and they don't want to hang out, then it gets harder too, right? Where it's like, we're going to so-and-so's house, and they're like, do we have to? Or, you know, like, or you're breaking up fights all the time when they're, you know, like when they're at that little stage where it's hard for little people to get along with each other. Yeah, then it makes it harder for those adult relationships to stick too.
Definitely.
So I'm going to say thank you to Jess for joining us on the podcast today. If people want to connect, check out your Tuesday content, or learn more about you and your farm, where can they find you online?
On Instagram, it's Martin_Jess_, and also Twitter is the same. Those are the two places to find me. Basically non-existent on Twitter, but Instagram is my main thing.
We're kind of the same. We have a Twitter. We don't really use it.
I stick my toes into the Twitter pool occasionally, and then I look around and I'm like, no, I'm out.
That's pretty much how I am. I like the odd time I'll post something, but definitely not very existent there.
Thank you for joining us today on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, we encourage you to support us by becoming a patron. Go to www.patreon.com/barnyardlanguage to make a small monthly donation to help cover the costs of making the show.
Please rate and review the podcast and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as Barnyard Language, and on Twitter, we are Barnyard Pod. If you'd like to connect with other farming families, you can join our private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We're always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch. We are a proud member of the Positively Farming Media Podcast Network.